Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Woodburn Accountants and Advisors webinar series on how to lead a team in China. Do you have a high turnover of employees in China? Are you having problems in implementing your company's philosophies and culture? Are you adapting yourself to the Chinese culture? Woodburn Accountants and Advisors is offering this complimentary webinar series on this subject. And hopefully by the end of the next 5 days, you will have information and tools that can enrich your China business skills and enhance your market entry efforts to achieve success on the market. But before we begin today's session, let's do a little bit of bureaucracy. When you entered the GoToWebinar control panel, you will be able to choose your audio option. You may find that a VPN or by using a VPN, you will have better internet stability and sound system. Do note that with webinar series, because you are on the internet, there could be issues and technical issues along the way. Please don't leave the webinar. Usually it takes about 30 seconds to a minute to come back on and be online, and we will be completing the session. So do be patient if there are any issues and go on. As long as you have all of the requirements from GoToWebinar on your computer, you should, in theory, not have any issues whatsoever. You have the choice on this webinar series to use your mic and speakers on your laptop or phone or tablet. However, if you need a better sound system, you can always switch to a landline. If you click on the phone call option, it will come up with this page, which gives you a dial-in number, an access code, and an audio pin. As we don't have a moderator for today's session, we may not hit the Q&A, and I may not be able to answer all of your questions or comments, but please don't be shy. Add questions, add comments into the into the questions section of your control panel, and I will be sure to answer you as soon as possible. Now, if we could just test the system, if you would all be so kind as clicking on the hand button in the control panel, that will allow me to know that you're listening in. Thank you. If you unclick it, then the hand will be removed from your control panel. For those of you that are new to Woodburn's webinar series, just allow me to introduce who we are. Woodburn Accountants and Advisors is specialized in inbound investment to China and Hong Kong. We establish, manage, and administer companies in both jurisdictions to meet our clients' specific requirements, which include everything from market entry, cross-border investment, tax optimization, and even corporate restructuring. Our clients are all international companies focused on inbound Asia investments, primarily to the two jurisdictions of China and Hong Kong. And they do everything. We have clients that are manufacturing in China, exporting from China, selling to China, and offering a variety of services within China. And they all range from startups, startup organizations to multinationals, and we even have a couple of publicly listed companies as clients as well. Just as a disclaimer, this presentation is a general view for everyone today. We have people on today's session that are from a variety of industries and sectors and a variety of different roles as well within those sectors. If you would like to have a consultation on your specific needs, or you just want to have some advice or an opinion, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'd be happy to assist you. Very briefly about myself, my name is Christina Kula. I'm head of business advisory at Woodburn Accountants and Advisors, and I am the speaker for today's session. I've been advising clients on their market entry needs and expansion needs within the Chinese territory since 2003. You can read my profile here as well as on LinkedIn and a couple of the other social media sites. But I always like at this stage to kind of highlight what I've learned in the last 15 years of doing business, of doing business in China. Sorry, I got something stuck in my throat. 3 points I've learned is one needs to have a great deal of patience. Sorry about that. One needs to have a great deal of patience in order to deal with the Chinese culture. And this is something I will be highlighting throughout today's presentation. The other 2 points, I'm very sorry, one moment. The other 2 points is having an eye on detail, understanding exactly what you're signing, what you're reading, what you're agreeing to within the Chinese market is something very critical. The other step that one needs to realize is that nobody, and I honestly mean nobody, has experienced a smooth journey within the Chinese market. Whether that entails the market research step, whether it entails the incorporation, whether it entails all the administration functions later, whether it entails negotiations with clients, with suppliers, there is always an obstacle that will arise. And again, I will be touching on this because it is a characteristical trait that causes problems within entities in China, and it is a cultural attribution to the Chinese market. Westerners tend to lose their patience when issues like this arise, and they tend to always want to look for someone to blame. What you need to realize is that almost any obstacle in China can be overcome with patience, with time, with understanding. But more than that, you can always also find a loophole, which is, for me, the beauty of China. You can always find a way around this rock that is lying in front of your path of success. And you just always have to remember, stop focusing on losing your patience, looking for someone to blame, looking at all the negativity versus looking at the positives and trying to find a way around it. The purpose of these webinar series from the perspective of Woodburn accountants and advisors is that our aim is to really inform and educate people on the Chinese market, to not have a fear of what is occurring there. And most importantly, my goal is to inspire you today to realize that everyone has issues in China. There's ways to overcome them, and there are people on the ground that can support you in terms of your journey. Apologies for my throat. So today we're going to be talking about the 10 reasons why some businesses are not successful in the Chinese market. So let's look at the agenda. What I want to highlight here is the fact that being not successful does not mean that the company has exited from the market, but rather that it was just not capable of growing at the rate that it had hoped to. Now, of course, you do have companies that have exited the market, and for some of them, it may be for these reasons. But I just want to emphasize here, not everyone exits the market. Usually the issues that most entrepreneurs, startups, and companies are facing is the fact that they are not growing at the rate that they had expected to, that they had budgeted for, or that they had put in their business plan. As we all know, there are millions of smart business ideas, millions of entrepreneurs setting up companies to deliver fantastic products and services in the Chinese market. And China has obviously more than its fair share of exciting market entrants, which means basically that the culture is ripe for business success. Obviously, we hear from many companies who have successfully set up their companies, but just over time have been frustrated by their inability to grow. For one reason or another, their progress has slowed and they're looking for something to kickstart them towards expansion. And in a surprising number of cases, it is usually the business owner or the overseas office who is responsible for the stagnation of the company. The inspiration, the single-mindedness, the perseverance and attention to detail that generally breathes life into a business in the first place can also be something that drags it down. And in this webinar, we'll be looking at the top 10 traits which can lead to the arrested development of companies in China. So let's look at these 10 deadly leadership traits. The first one, and probably for me the most critical, is the refusal to adapt. If you've launched your business in China on the strength of one brilliant idea and the launch has been successful, there is a tendency to feel reluctant to make any changes to the concept in case you throw the whole thing off the rails. And this is extremely common in China, whereby companies replicate their business models, replicate their services and products with the assumption that it's gonna fit in the Chinese market. Or they will go into the market with the least commitment and have fear to progress to a limited company or to a bigger status to grasp the opportunities that lie there. As the picture says, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, which is obviously false. Improvement is always possible and adaptation is always needed depending on the market that you go into. A business model that was well suited to your home market is really unlikely to fit without some degree of adaptation, particularly in a market as large, as dynamic, and as culturally different as China. And if your gut instinct is telling you that change is required, or if you're getting the same message from your team, your advisors, it's truly important that you listen. You've got to open your ideas to the possibilities that change to your business model can bring and be prepared to say goodbye to the original concept. It's got you this far, but it is time to move on. Now, on the downside, there are problems that could occur in China. You may have listened and you may be prepared to improve and adapt, but the famous last words, the government may prevent you from moving on. They may set limitations or criteria to be fulfilled that are impossible to fulfill. Be prepared for this as well. With every change, there's always probably a rock that will fall in your path, but just remember in China, there are loopholes around the system. The one thing from a cultural perspective where people refuse to adapt, and I say this particularly with people that are in head office locations, is the idea that if you go to a new jurisdiction like China, China has its own holidays. It has its own cultural way of doing business, and you have to be able to adapt yourself to that. The amount of phone calls that I personally get from clients over Chinese New Year, which is the largest holiday period in China, is staggering. People in China also deserve holidays. They also deserve to take public holidays. And to have a disrespect on people in China or people who are based in China just for the holiday reasons because they don't match, that doesn't bode well for your business in China. You've got to be able, and I use that just as one example, but you've got to be able to adapt to a lot of these things from a cultural perspective. And in tomorrow's session, we will be looking at 20 different tips that you can learn in order to adapt yourself from a cultural perspective. Reason number 2 is too much or too little involvement in the detail. It's quite natural for anyone who's gone through the rigors of launching a business to be somewhat obsessed with the details and to feel compelled to play a hands-on role in ensuring that the work continues to be done, obviously at the same standard as when you launched it. And these are very noble sentiments to have, particularly in a market such as China, where everything is foreign and it can be restrictive, it can be complex. As your business, however, becomes more established, it's important to spend more time working on the business versus in the business. By this perspective, it may be more advantageous for you to outsource a lot of the activities that are within the organization than keep everything in-house and put so much more on your plate that you're focusing in the business versus actually on the business. A good analogy is a ship. When you launch your ship, you tend to spend most of your time in the engine room, keeping the boiler stoked, making sure the ship keeps moving forward. But before very long, you need to get up on the bridge and plot your course. The farther your ship sails into uncharted waters, the more time you need to spend on the bridge planning, plotting, strategizing, making sure you don't, making sure that you avoid the rocks, the icebergs, storms, etc. Now, this all sounds like everyone is too involved too much in in about 5% of the cases, it is the reality. However, from my experience, 95% of companies that I have met and have worked with had too little involvement in their China business. Providing excuses such as it's too far away, I'm having time zone issues, I'm too busy, I don't speak Chinese, and the list goes on. It's shocking. You have made a considerable investment in time and, more importantly, in money to launch your business in China. Why do you suddenly stop paying attention just because you have people on the ground? The people that are there on the ground are the people that are making the ship running. They're in the engine room. They're making sure that the business side is running, it's operating. But you still need somebody who is strategizing, planning, plotting, making sure that the journey of your China entity is going in the right direction. And the excuses that I get from a lot of people looking on the superficial level on things that they need in order to be able to strategize, like, for example, you don't complain when you can't read the financial statement. If the financial statements you read are all in Chinese, why aren't you asking for a translation? You can even do that by email, writing one sentence. Please give me the attached document in English. When you don't hop on a plane when you realize your bank account is at zero, or when you feel that the employees are starting to revolt, you need to be active and proactive and do the necessary action plans to make sure that your strategy is going in the right direction. At a minimum, outsource to lawyers, accountants, consultants, marketeers, so you know your business is being handled in capable hands, at least during the startup phase of your China journey. And this will allow you to focus on the strategy, it will allow you to focus on the business, so that it won't be as critical for you to hop on a plane for these red alerts or urgent signs. Reason 3, insufficient care when hiring. Every successful company agrees on one thing. A business is only as good as its people. Do your employees have talent? Are they creative? Do they have an inclination to take your business forward? If not, it's time you started hiring people who do. Hiring in China, obviously, it does not sit comfortably with a lot of business people, most of whom start out on their own and regard employing staff as a necessary evil, rather than an opportunity for the business to grow in the way that they envisaged. If hiring doesn't come naturally to you, then obviously seek help. There are plenty of recruitment experts out there who can help you find people who truly deserve to be part of your great adventure and your great journey in China. On Friday, I have a recruitment expert, Manfred Steinkeller. We're going to be doing a little bit of a different presentation on that day. We'll just have a couple of slides, but it will be more of a discussion between the two of us on the issues about hiring and maintaining staff in China and the critical points that one has to look out for in terms of talent, in terms of personality, in terms of creativity, etc. So if you are interested in understanding recruitment and the specifics about finding this talent, do join us for our Friday session. Now, a couple of tips on hiring and controlling employees in China. Don't trust so quickly. I made that mistake myself when I first arrived in China in 2003. Trust needs to be earned, and the employee needs to prove it to you that they are loyal and trustworthy. You can't expect to have someone you have just hired take over the whole responsibility of your organization, giving bank account details, giving access to bank accounts, giving company licenses, giving all of your know-how and IP and intellectual property to them without being able to trust them and gain trust. Things have to be done in a step-by-step process. And obviously in China, it's very well known that you have to be prepared for turnover. You are going to spend time and money on training people who will take advantage of this and then leave you after a year or two for only earning 1,000 renminbi or 2,000 renminbi. It is still to this day extremely common. And trust me, I've gone through it. It's aggravating, it's frustrating, it's irritating, especially when they resign on your holidays. It's a nightmare. And obviously, if you're not locally there to deal with it, it's even more of an issue. And obviously, most importantly, it can halt your business because it can halt your operational process. But everyone goes through this. Every company goes through this. I think if you look at multinational statistics, turnover probably is around the 10% mark, if not slightly more. With smaller, medium-sized companies, you're looking at a turnover, again, of between 5 and 8%. So relatively high compared to traditional companies in Europe and in the US. Now, again, you aren't alone. And if you can't do this on your own because you're not based there locally, seek help. And one of the key things I always recommend to people is use the local online job recruitment sites like 51job.com or chinahr.com and continuously receive resumes for different specific functions. Why? Because this is going to give you a backup plan. You will already have resumes on file where you can reach out to people to see if they are interested in a role if then someone resigns. It's sort of an immediate backup plan. Reason number 4, number blindness. Create a business plan and a budget for your China business, for your China journey. You can't grow without money. You need money in the bank and you need a sound financial plan. For this, you definitely need a good CFO in your headquarters who can guide you in the budgeting and controlling. So I'm not even saying that you need someone in China. You need a good CFO based in your headquarters who understands the accounting system, the tax system in China that can guide and help you strategize for your business. Don't exclude the CFO in the headquarters. It should be you and him on this journey building up your China business. If you've been doing the figures yourself up to this point in China, it's time to hand over the books to an expert and concentrate on steering the ship. If you've been doing it on your own, and trust me, I've worked with a lot of startups where the owner, who has no financial background, has been opening up an Excel sheet and keeping very rough numbers and not going through necessarily the trade transactions properly, not making sure if they're supporting documentation, nothing. At some point, you do need to either outsource or hire an accountant who can guide and help you with the various steps. One of the things that I always tell people is the one bureau, well, there's 2 bureaus, but the main bureau is that you don't want to mess around with is the tax bureau. So you don't want to just be a bean counter, but you really want to be a visionary who can obviously interpret the figures that you are receiving so that you know where your business strengths are and you know where your weaknesses lie, and you can use the data to help plan and strategize for the future. In my experience, I've seen CEOs and CFOs wait too long to have these discussions. On top of everything else, China makes it so easy for you in order to read your data. Why? Because they require you to produce monthly accounts. So in most countries, like Hong Kong, for example, you are only required to have annual accounts done. It's stipulated in law. In China, you have to do monthly accounts because there are certain taxes that you have to file monthly from a business, from a corporate perspective. So you are being given monthly financial statements. You are able to review your budget against your strategies on a monthly basis and strategize. They are giving you this opportunity. And trust me, there are a lot of people who don't take it. It's a pity, because a year later, when adjustments have to be made or things haven't been thought about, your strategy will probably have to be completely redone. And it can halt in your growth. So be aware that it is extremely important to do that. For those of you that are in joint venture structures or are thinking about going into a joint venture relationship, one of the things that I have seen an awful lot is the fact that because your Chinese partner probably already has a company in China, you use the resources of that company, so the accounting team in that company, to do the accounts for the joint venture. This is dangerous. You are partners, and the most sensitive information about a joint venture is the financial aspect. Do not place these crucial and sensitive issues into your partner. You want to be able to share that responsibility. And I'm recommending now a lot of Western parties to joint ventures to make sure that they're in joint venture agreement. There is a clause which states that either the Western party will hire someone or that they will both hire someone that will be appointed for this one entity only and will be responsible for that one entity. But both parties should be involved in that recruitment process. The next deadly trait is in relation to market assumptions. Most businesses launch with some idea of who their customers are or might be and who their competitors are, but rarely do they do an in-depth market research or even focus study. They assume they know without carrying out the thorough research. Why? Because it says it in the media. And if the competitors are there, then they're there for a reason, so we should be following. When the time for growth arrives, you can't afford to go to market with a scattergun approach. You need to be very focused, and that means knowing your Chinese customers in detail, right down to what they're talking about on social media. Particularly today, you have to think about the social media aspect. Similarly, the more you know about your competitors in China, the more you will know about your own business and what makes it different. You've got to differentiate yourself from your competitors, whether they are Western owned or whether they are Chinese owned. And it's this difference that will ultimately be your route to success. Now, just as a small tip, when you create your marketing and your business plan and your budget, just as a guide, you should think about these 10 items in your plan. Now, for those of you that are already in China, you should have a continuous marketing and business plan and budget, something that you haven't just put in a drawer and forgotten about. This plan needs to be updated regularly. It needs to be a flexible plan that based on economic situations, based on new government regulations, can be updated, changed, amended. It needs to be a flexible piece of document that isn't just forgotten, but is used either on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, biannual basis, or annual basis. So just in this document, some of the things that you should be putting within it is, what is the current environment? How large is the Chinese market? And is it big enough to positively affect your company? Competition. What other companies are working within the Chinese market already? And is there really an opportunity for you to bring something different to the table? How much of a financial investment is required to enter the Chinese market? Now, people always ask me, what's the minimum requirement capital needed? I hate that question because I answer in return, what is the capital you require to start up your business? Have you made that calculation? Once you've made that calculation, we'll put that in as your registered capital, right? So you need to understand all of these different points. In terms of resources, can your existing business afford to reroute funds, maybe even employees and other resources to the Chinese market? What kind of technology investments and equipment and training do you need to offer, right? Do you want to bring certain know-how? And then if you do, how are you going to protect that know-how? The new market today might look extremely attractive, but what is its potential in the future? You've got to do a short-term and long-term plan. Legal tax compliance, are there any issues that could negatively impact your business or positively impact your business? Are the consumers in China, oh sorry, that's not customers, consumers. Are consumers in China an appropriate match for your existing brand and product? What are the barriers to entry into China? Can you overcome them? Can you already see challenges that are going to pop up? And can you already kind of create a plan on how you might overcome them? And what are your goals ultimately, right? Why do you want to enter China? Is it truly right for your business? Does it match your business goals? Does it match your your ultimate overall strategy for your organization. So just as a tip on the point about market assumptions, make sure that you create a marketing and business plan. And again, just at least having these 10 points incorporated within it will give you some guidance about your journey. Reason 6 for the deadly leadership traits is control freak leadership. And again, I'm extremely guilty of this. Why? Because when I first arrived in 2003, I was burned by an employee. I gave too much trust, too much loyalty. And what happened was a very negative consequence where I became actually a control freak. I wanted to supervise and have overview on everything. But as your company grows, you can't do that. You just physically as one person don't have the time nor the resources. And then you forget to focus on what is critical for your business as a manager. So growth doesn't really come from a spreadsheet, right? It comes from the whole culture of the company, and you need your whole team to be aligned and energized towards the same goal as you. And that means sharing a bit of your power. Now, as I mentioned, you have to keep a tight hold of the reins as you launch, but at some point, you've got to let go of those reins and delegate. So as I say here, empower your staff in China step by step and encourage their creativity. The biggest dilemma I have had with a lot of staff in China is the fact that they don't necessarily know how to think outside of the box. That's an education issue within China in terms of how they've learned information, how they've processed information. In the Western world, we're taught more in a different, we're educated in a very different way and in a different manner. So you will have to provide some form of training to your staff to get up to that Western standard. And on Wednesday, I will be talking about the importance of providing training to your employees, whether that means writing an email in English to a business professional level, whether it means learning how to do a presentation, particularly if you want to go over results on a quarterly basis and you want your team to prepare certain presentations, whether it means teaching people about different educational aspects. You need to continue that education for your staff and your team. And as time comes, empower them and delegate to them. Step by step, trust and loyalty will be gained. And one thing that I have personally found is by also providing training to your staff, it gives them the sign that they can not only grow up and learn within your organization, but that potentially they can also move up the ladder. This may not be offered by Chinese domestic companies. So this is already something that is differentiating you from employees in terms of retaining them and maintaining them. Reason 7 is marketing bias. Does your company look like something you would expect to find in the big business world, or does it look inescapably small? Branding and marketing are essential for growth, especially in China. You might love that logo your employee knocked up when you launch, but is it really going to cut it among all the corporates or all the consumers in China? If not, you got to swallow your pride and reinvest in a rebrand. From your business cards to your website to your social media pages and beyond, the image your business projects will have a major bearing on its chances of staying afloat in China. And you've got to be prepared. You've got to spend a significant chunk of your growth budget on marketing, especially if you want to be taken seriously. The key point here is adaptation. What you're doing at home will not work in China. Full stop. Adapt your marketing to the Chinese market. Adapt your brand to the Chinese market. Adapt your website to the Chinese market. Make sure you take WeChat training to understand how important WeChat is for marketing purposes. Understand the social media landscape and understand how social media is done in China with all the various platforms that are out there. It's not like Facebook and Twitter. Learn what the Chinese like and don't like. Use focus groups. Make sure you do the research, right? So that you understand. But where I said on the previous page that you should be offering training and empowering your staff, make sure that you get the training yourself on how things work in China so that you understand how you should be adapting to the market. Reason 8 is the cultural diversity. And this is a notoriously tricky one for some entrepreneurs to swallow, is the need, obviously, to change their own personal image when entering a new market, which has a different business approach due to cultural differences. Just as the image of the business needs to be suitable to the Chinese market you're moving into, the same applies to you as its figurehead, all right? So if you are an entrepreneur of a startup, or if you are a business owner overseas and you're looking to establish your company in China, remember that it is a natural progression that you change as well when you go into the Chinese market, okay? One perfect example for this, dining and drinking is part of the game when you are doing business in China, particularly when you are dealing with suppliers. In the manufacturing world, it has historically always been a huge thing. The dining, the drinking, and the karaoke. This is something you can't always get around. You just have to do it. And obviously, when you're dining on Chinese food, and you might not necessarily like that Chinese food. Close your eyes, don't look at it, and try it. You cannot imagine by just trying a dish how that makes everyone else on the table feel. It's the same when you go to Germany and you ask someone to eat, I don't know, curry sausages, and they've got no idea what it is, but you're asking them to try it. You get so proud with the fact that they try it, right? Or if you go to the UK, I mean, there's so many bizarre dishes in the UK as well. But when people come and try your cuisine, you are proud. It makes you proud, especially when they fake it and nod and say they like it. It's the same in China. It's exactly the same concept. So close your eyes and try it. The drinking is another thing. There's a lot of gumbays, cheers. There's some very heavy alcohol that needs to be drunk. And in some instances, this could be an issue of whether you win or lose the business. Now, I can tell you, compared to my father, who was doing business in the late 60s and 70s in China, it certainly has changed. It's not as big of an issue as it used to be, but you will find certain people from the older generation who do expect it, especially the karaoke. That's still something for the younger generation that they love. I hate singing in public, but definitely when I do my team building exercises with my staff, knowing that they love it, I'll definitely go up and do 1 or 2 songs to make them happy, and they are thrilled. They take photos of me, they take videos of me, and it makes them so happy that I've actually made a fool of myself. But you know what? I know the next day they're going to come to the office, they're going to have respect for me, and they're going to help me to bring my business and to the goal that I've set forth for it. So definitely remember that you also have to semi-adapt yourself to the market, especially if you are the entrepreneur or you are the business owner. Reason 9 is lack of vision. Now, I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old at home, and I think I use the term sharing is caring at least 5 to 10 times in a day. Sharing is caring is an important aspect of transparency, openness, trust, loyalty. It's a collective vision, right? And you've got to understand that the Chinese have grown up in a communist regime, which is a collective vision, okay? And they're going to pass that down, and they will want that within your organization. So as you build trust on a step-by-step basis, share your plans, but don't just share your plans. Listen to the response of your team. All right? The first thing is, what is the plan? And the second thing is everyone within your organization on board with that plan? Do they collectively agree with you? And if some of them don't, and another key aspect is maybe your staff will not voice the fact that they don't agree with you. It's a very common aspect. So beyond the fact that you make group team meetings, you should also take out significant people one by one and rediscuss on a one-to-one basis whether they agree with your vision. Listen to the feedback. Don't forget, you are hiring local staff in order to be able to build and operate your business. They will have more insider information than you will ever have. This is something that I have truly learned. I run an accounting firm in China. I have a background in finance, but it does not mean that I am a true Chinese CPA. I am not, which means I have to trust and I have to listen to my staff who have the connections, the network, and most importantly, the knowledge to give me that information. So you've got to make sure you've got your listening ears on, that you share the information, and that you involve your team so that there is not this lack of vision amongst everyone. But like I said, you do this in a step-by-step basis as you are growing trust and as you have loyalty. The final reason for today of the 10, deadly leadership traits of what causes people to fail in China or not grow at the speed that they want is fear. We all know that entrepreneurs are courageous. They have to be if they're going to venture into a startup business, and especially if they're going to venture into a new territory like China. But everyone has their limit, and sometimes it's the fear of sailing into shark-invested waters that holds companies back from doing things that they know they need to do in order to grow. But remember, you're not doing this alone. Help is at hand. First of all, you should have built a team, whether that's one person, 2 people, 10 people, 20 people, 100 people on the ground, who again have the insider information and knowledge to help you, to secure you, to make you feel you're doing the right thing and to avoid that fear. But on top of everything else, whatever sector you are in, there are consultants, service providers, headhunters, lawyers, accountants, auditors, marketeers, public relation experts who all have experience in the Chinese market and know and understand the waters that you're moving into, who can advise you, share their experiences, and most importantly, give you the confidence that can help you move forward, right? There are thousands of people on the ground. So make sure that you are getting the help that you need in order to grow. Don't think that you can put all the weight of this business on your shoulders. I want to conclude with today's session on a summary of keywords for successfully leading a team in China. I obviously went through the 10 points of what are the deadly leadership traits that really cause issues for people. But I kind of want to pinpoint keywords of what you really should be doing and maintaining throughout your China journey, whether you're just starting off or whether you're already in the market. Points 1 and 2, create a business plan and a budget annually, and make sure that you are keeping it simple, you're keeping it flexible, that you can always adapt it. From my perspective, China is complex enough that you want to be able to create structures. You also want to be able to employ people legally. You want to do it properly, but you also want to do it simply, right? Obviously, you have to think about things in the short and the long term, but ultimately you want to keep everything as simple as possible so that you're not overwhelmed. One of the key things that I've noticed over time is that as companies tend to grow, business owners think that they have to increase headcount, primarily because a very common feature of local employees is they say, oh, now you're asking me to do overtime. I'm going to have to work on the weekends. This is going to cost you more. You should really think about hiring people. There are certainly employees out there that are lazy and don't want the extra workload. But that should be a sign for you that potentially they don't follow your vision of the growth of the company and they don't want to be in your company. All right, you want to be people, you want to have people on board that are proactive, creative, and are geared towards your vision and want to follow your vision and would even work overtime without asking for more because they really enjoy the job and they enjoy working with you. For points 4 and 5, looking at freedom and opportunity, you have to create structures and you have to have people on the ground that offer you the freedom to expand your business and to grasp the opportunities for expansion, okay? So you wanna make sure that you have a business plan, you have a budget, you're gonna create a structure and hire people that offer you something simple, but it gives you the freedom and the opportunity to take on any new investment. The only thing that I ask is whatever opportunity comes at your doorstep, make sure you do an analysis that it's a real opportunity. Make sure you look at the returns of investment and you analyze each opportunity. And you should have your team readily there. They have the insider information to do this form of analysis for you. Point 6 is knowledge is power. All right. If you're feeling frustrated by the ability to grow your business, you've got to ask yourself honestly whether any of the traits that I mentioned previously apply to you. If they do, you've got to make it a part of your business strategy to address them, and you've got to educate yourself on how to improve. Okay? This is my biggest thing. In whatever circumstances you're in, knowledge is power. Whether it's dealing with employees and understanding the labor laws, and understanding the cultural diversity that exists, and understanding how to do business in China with your team of staff or with external parties. You've got to understand certain legal obligations that your company has in China. You've got to understand how to do the marketing, how to do the social media. There is so much education that you need to have yourself, which obviously will come into the business plan, will come into the budget. But the more that you know, the more you can protect yourself and the more you will be able to grasp opportunities that help you then grow and expand your business in China. Last but not least, watch your people and watch your investment. As I highlighted previously, sometimes I have clients who pay too little attention on their business and too little attention on their staff. Especially if you're in a startup phase and you're hiring your first employee and you're sitting in Europe, there's a 6 to 7 hour time zone difference. This person is sitting all by themselves. They've got the weight of the growth of your business in China and nobody is contacting them from the headquarters on a daily basis. First of all, it's really lonely, right? And they're gonna feel like a fish out of water where they don't know what expectations are, what the vision is. Maybe they haven't been given proper guidance. You've got to make sure you watch your people. Pay attention to them. Communicate with them. All right? Last but not least, watch your investment. You have invested considerable time and energy into this project. Keep control of it, obviously, at least on a superficial level, that you can really focus on what's important for that investment. But watch it. Don't ignore it. And don't come up with excuses in terms of time zone issues and all of these other things. As I mentioned, I don't have a moderator for today's Q&A, but please don't hesitate to add your questions, add your comments into the questions section of the control panel. I'll be happy to stay on the line and answer a few of those as soon as I stop the recording, but please don't be shy to add them here. Again, if you would like to have a free consultation, please don't hesitate to contact me. You can reach me at Christina@woodburnglobal.com or info@woodburnglobal.com, and I'd be happy to give you a discussion. If you're also interested in our free resources, we publish on a weekly basis an e-newsletter with all of our latest up-to-date events and publications and information. You can also follow us on a variety of different social media pages. We've got LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube has all of our webinars recorded on there, and also Xing. We've got another webinar series on how to lead a team in China. Tomorrow I'll be talking about the top 20 tips to understand China's business culture. We'll be also looking at low-cost trainings for individuals, how to employ talent, and on Friday we're going to have a unique session which will be a discussion and debate between Manfred Steinkellner from Steinkellner China Search on how to find the right candidates to be successful for your organization in China. I would like to thank everybody for joining me today, and I hope you will join me for our future sessions this week. We are going to have further webinars starting again from September. We're going to have a break in August, so please don't hesitate to register for them. They're all complimentary. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Goodbye.